Welcome back to Through the Big Book with Dr. Ben. My name's Ben. I'm an alcoholic. This is Doctor's Opinion with my friend Jim B, Part 2. So we were on page XXVI, which is Roman numerals for page 26. We just finished up the let's see, what is this?
The second paragraph.
Yeah, after it says the doctor's theory, allergy, blah, blah,
Yep.
blah. So
Right.
I wanted to unpack a little bit on what they mean by allergy. So, today the field of immunology is so unbelievably complicated. I thank God every day I pass my immunology course in medical school because it's just so complicated. The field of immunology has come a long way in 80 years. And so what they mean today is very different from what they meant back then. It has nothing to do with antigens, etc., that we know of. What they meant was an abnormal reaction. So, if somebody gets stung by a bee, is the most common way I've heard it told, that is not allergic to bee venom, if you will, bee stingers. It might hurt, it might swell up, they get a wheal and flare reaction in that spot. Take some ibuprofen, drink some water, move on with your life. If somebody's allergic to it, they have an abnormal reaction. And that, not to get too crazy about it, I'm just going to say it's an abnormal reaction. Their throat will swell up, and they can go into anaphylaxis, have an anaphylactic reaction. Their throat can swell up, they can die. Very poor deal, very bad deal happens. And so that's kind of the same thing that they're implying here with alcohol. We're say if my wife has a glass of wine, she likes rosé. She's a rosé person. So if she has a glass of rosé on a hot day, she might finish the whole glass, she might not. And she gets a little more talkative, and she, is a more, opinionated, or voices her opinions more thoroughly in that situation, and she'll probably get drowsy and want to go to bed before too long. I don't know if that's a normal reaction, but that's her reaction, and most of the people I've seen, when they have a drink of alcohol, they're good with that. They might have 4 or 5 drinks, and we'll talk about the hard drinker later on. That's a whole nother conversation. But the abnormal reaction, what happens in me, and Jim will probably help me out with his interpretation here too. What happens with me when I take a drink of alcohol, an abnormal reaction occurs. And what I've been taught is that it has something to do with a 2-enzyme system of alcohol dehydrogenase and acetaldehyde dehydrogenase. You can look those enzymes up. And there's something, the byproducts of those are called catecholamines. And there's this other thing called THIQ, which stands for tetrahydroisoquinoline. I'll put some different links in the bottom if you are interested in looking into that stuff. And anyways, there's this cascade of reactions that occurs, is the bottom line, that are abnormal, genetically programmed abnormal in me than a normal drinker. And I'm telling you, I feel every single cell in my entire body just lights up with excitement. And it's like my chest poofs up, my shoulders pull back, I get 10 feet taller, and, I come to life. This is my solution. And I'm not quite where I want to be. This is not quite what I'm looking for, but we're closer. And a little bit more of this and we'll get there. And and then I can't stop. And so that's kind of my abnormal reaction, is as shortened as I can make it. Jim, do you want to unpack anything more on the allergy part?
Well, no, just emphasize what you just said. I mean, it's now been proven medically, scientifically, physiologically, and what you just said about the enzymes and the THIQ, and but the point is that, and we're going to read more about this here in a second, that normal drinkers get it all they want to drink every time, period.
I like that.
I never did. I mean, I remember early in my drinking career. I mean, I can remember going to, like in college, when it would be 3 or 4 of us riding back and forth together from Tulsa to Tahlequah. We'd stop off at a Get and Go in Broken Arrow, and those guys would want to get a beer. A beer. Well, to me, a beer was a minimum of a quart. But normally I get 2 quarts. And by the time we got to Wagner, I'd already had that one down. And by the time we got from Wagner to Tahlequah, I had the second one down. And I was ready to go.
Yep.
I was ready to party.
Yep.
Those guys had 1 beer, and that's all they wanted.
Yep.
See, that's the difference between us and them. Like you said, your wife, my first wife, every time she drank, she got all she wanted. Her idea of going out and having a good time was going to dinner
That's
and
a great way
having
to
a
put it.
glass of wine with dinner. And the point is that one time I asked her, how do you feel when you've had a couple of drinks? Oh, I get a little queasy feeling in my stomach, might get a little warm glow about me, might get a little horny. I'm just ready to go home.
Yeah.
Well, see, I don't understand that.
Yeah.
Because when I take a drink, something's going to happen. I will get more. That's the difference.
That's the
Because
difference.
see, every time they drink, they get all they want.
Yep.
I never did.
Yeah, and and just a little bit more on that, on the genetic part before we move on. There's that because there's 2 different enzymes, there are a lot of different things that can happen, and so you'll see in some populations, particularly in the Asian population, where one of the enzymes is it's a different setup, and so they'll flush a lot. You'll see a lot of Asian people who will flush because the way that their enzymes process the alcohol cause them to flush. They have more acetaldehyde buildup in their body, and they'll flush, which is a poisonous byproduct and stuff. And so, and then there's other populations who are more prone to alcoholism, and you can read about that. I'm not going to elaborate on that because it's not very important. But I just say all that just to emphasize that this is very clearly proven to be genetic. It's while we are going through a doctor's opinion, his opinion was way ahead of his time.
Correct.
And in the last 80 years of all this, technology advances and all this medical advances, it's only affirmed what is in this book. So all the stuff that I've just laid out, in addition to what's in the reading, is only to enhance and back up his opinion. So, with that, then next it says, though we work out our solution on the spiritual as well as an altruistic plane, and altruism means that you're doing something for free. You're not getting paid for it. It says we favor hospitalization for the alcoholic who's very jittery or befogged. More often than not, it's imperative that a man's brain be cleared before he's approached, as he then has a better chance of understanding and accepting what we have to offer. So that's still true today. If somebody's drinking a very high volume of liquor frequently, it's definitely worth considering going to seek medical attention, because you can die from withdrawing from alcohol. So by all means, if I don't underestimate going to seek medical help before starting AA. So because that can save your life. A lot of the other substances of abuse, you might feel like you're going to die, like from opioids or from cocaine or something along those lines. You might feel like you're going to die, but you won't. It's just very, very unpleasant symptoms, where alcohol and the benzodiazepines actually you can die from the withdrawal. So by all means, I just want to emphasize that here. By all means, please, if you think that you're in danger of getting DTs and seizing, please go to the hospital and get medical help.
Without a doubt. Yes, please.
So then it says, the doctor writes, the subject presented in this book seems to me to be of paramount importance to those afflicted with alcoholic addiction.
Can I stop there for a second?
Please.
A lot of times when a person reads this paragraph, especially the newcomer who has been to a treatment center, and they're the 90-day, I call them the 90-day wonders, and they'll claim that yes, alcohol is a drug, and a drug is a drug is a drug is a drug, and it talks about addiction in the big book. Well, this is the only place it talks about addiction.
Yeah.
And addiction. The word "and" means separate. The point is that when we see this, remember this was written by a layman who was not, a doctor who was not a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. This is, what we're reading here now is because Dr. Silkworth had treated Bill Wilson, he was asked to be a contributor to the book, okay?
Right.
So the point is, when it says, the person who says, well, it talks about addiction in the big book. Well, and addiction, and drug addiction. And the point is that we've got to realize that they are separate.
Sure.
Okay. That's why we have our third tradition and
Absolutely.
our fifth tradition.
Right. Which
So-
we'll talk about, which
Yeah.
which are vital, but
Yeah.
we'll talk about at another date.
Correct.
So I'm going to read this last couple of paragraphs, and then that will be this episode. So it says, I say this after many years' experience as medical director of one of the oldest hospitals in the country treating alcoholic and drug addiction. There was therefore a sense of real satisfaction when I was asked to contribute a few words on a subject which is covered in such masterly detail in these pages. So I know we got into a lot of stuff that might have been outside of AA's scope, and it wasn't my intention to lose you on that, but I just wanted to help you understand that we've come a long way, and everything that all the ground that we've covered in the last 80 years in the medical community has only backed up the doctor's opinion.
Correct.
So he was way, way ahead of his time.
That is correct.
So this is the end of part 2 of the doctor's opinion through the Big Wood. So thank you for coming today. God bless you, and that's it.